How great was that? I mean, what a performance.
Oh, it was just unbelievable. Just a truly incredible experience, and the kind of experience that sometimes you probably don't realize how special it is until the event is over. At the time, you're kind of a bag of nerves. You're inside the stadium, and the roller coaster of emotions that we went through. I mean, it's crazy that we were 3-0 up and so nervous still. And the game starts. You get given a penalty, you miss the penalty.
Yeah.
Minutes later, Real Madrid get given a penalty. Okay, it was overturned, but that period was just agonising. So just incredible to see Arsenal look as confident and as comfortable as they did in the end. And it's a reminder, I think, for a lot of Arsenal fans and people in the kind of wider world of football that regardless of the fact that Arsenal have had a bit of a disappointing Premier League season and the reasons behind that we could spend all day talking about them, but I think for me it's just a reminder that Mikel Arteta has really progressed this team. The club has progressed, and to be in the last four of the Champions League, to have overcome Real Madrid 5-1 on aggregate is really, really special. And yeah, I'm still smiling. Days later, I'm still smiling from ear to ear.
You've got me to thank for Saka's goal, because I was saying I think he looks a bit leggy. He's starting to look a little bit leggy. I think probably need to take him off, and then he scored. Since he's come back, he's been exceptional, maybe even better than he was before the injury.
Yeah, he's been really, really effective. He hasn't, I don't think, impacted games overall as much in terms of the build-up play. I think he's had to maybe pick and choose his moments a little bit more because he's not 100% fit yet. But I do think, the impact is undeniable. I won't tell you, I don't think I could say on air what I was saying when he missed the penalty, though, and he decided to go for the Panenka like that. But, he overcame that. And I think a telltale sign of the fact that, he didn't let it get to him. He didn't allow it to kind of cloud his thoughts was the fact that he then dinked it over Courtois in the way he did. Just truly brilliant.
Great goal.
It's interesting with England and Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham, because you kind of feel Rice, because Bellingham is such a brilliant footballer, and he didn't show it in these two games, but it doesn't mean he's not a brilliant footballer. But Rice was so good that does it get to the stage where you go, you've got to play Declan Rice in the Declan Rice role and then fit the other players around him? Do you know what I mean? Because just the way he carries the ball, he was unbelievable. Not just the free kicks, just everything about him was so good in these two games.
Yeah, he was brilliant. In the first leg, you saw obviously Declan Rice doing what he does in terms of marshalling the midfield, but then producing that technical brilliance as well for those two free kicks. But in the second leg, I thought he had to show a different side of his game. I thought he had to be a bit more of a carrier for Arsenal. He had to be a bit of an outlet. He had to carry the ball out of those defensive areas into the midfield. He had to be really, really streetwise as well. And that, for me, is where I saw a real maturity in Declan Rice, because let's not forget he was one yellow card away from being suspended like Thomas Partey is, and Jude Bellingham among others were really winding him up and trying to get in his face. There was that incident on the touchline where Rice went to clear the ball and Bellingham sort of holding his leg and trying desperately to get a reaction out of him. Look, I don't deny that Jude Bellingham is a fantastic footballer, but I thought that over the two legs, Declan Rice showed that he's much more important to his team than Jude Bellingham is to Real Madrid. And, Bellingham contributes goals. And I think that when you score goals, sometimes that can overinflate your value to the team overall. Whereas with Declan Rice, you're seeing everything. He's the all-round midfielder at the minute. And for me, he's the one that you got to build the team around if you're the England manager.
Well, yeah, I mean, Foden hasn't done anything to, if you want to talk about England for a bit, Foden hasn't done a lot recently to claim that shirt, has he? So, I mean, you could play Bellingham further forward, up with Kane, and bring Adam Wharton in behind Rice, and then you've got, I think, a world class midfield.
Okay. So Wharton in deeper. Okay,
Yeah,
I see. Yeah, because the whole
deep.
idea is Rice is sort of having to play deep.
Yeah, so
isn't it?
Wharton deep, and then Rice, and then Bellingham up front with that's what I would do anyway. But I'm not the England manager, so what do I know?
Can I ask you, Harry, about what you want Arsenal to do in the Premier League now? Because we were sort of suggesting to Lars that Arsenal,
play the kids,
not totally, but they don't have a lot to play from the Premier League. If they lost all their games, they'd probably still come in the top five. Obviously, Tottenham and Man United have nothing to play from the league. But what do you want to see from Arsenal in the league now?
I want to see them consolidate second place. I think they're capable of doing that when you look at the fixtures that they've got remaining, even at sort of 70%. So I think it's about managing the team really cleverly. You're going to make changes, of course, because you've got those big games coming up against PSG, but you also don't want to weaken the team too much. You don't want to take unnecessary gambles. It's a very, very difficult balance to find, but I think it's really important that Arsenal finish second, because if they finish second and they continue in the Champions League, you can look at this season and say, they managed to rectify what was potentially a really poor season by consolidating that second place, maintaining the level at least. And if Arsenal at their worst are second, then that in itself shows you sort of how far they've come over the last few years. But at the same time, you don't want to risk the Champions League, because there is a real opportunity, guys, for Arsenal to go on and be crowned European champions. And regardless of what people say about Mikel Arteta, and regardless of what the critics say, no Arsenal manager's ever achieved that. Not even the great Arsene Wenger in his pomp managed that. So if Arteta was to win the Champions League, he'd be putting his name in Arsenal's history books. It would be an unbelievable event. And I think he's got to try and do what he can to finish second. But if he finishes third and wins the Champions League, nobody's going to complain about that. So the Champions League is where it's at for me.
Yeah, but PSG is... I'm so excited to see this game. PSG are much more interesting now than they were when, they had the Galacticos. Obviously, they have spent money, of course, but I can't call it. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one to call, because I remember watching PSG against Liverpool over the two legs and being blown away by them. Even in the first leg against Aston Villa, I thought they were totally in control. I thought Villa were lucky to get away with just a 3-1 defeat. They've got so many of those players that I think have almost been coached out of the game a little bit. Your Kvaratskhelia, your Dembeles, Doués, those kind of players that play off the cuff, that have got a bag of tricks and are always going to produce moments of magic. Against Arsenal, it's a difficult one. Like, to borrow a boxing phrase for a minute, styles make fights, don't they? And I do think that for Arsenal, it almost suits them to face teams that are willing to come onto them and be a little bit more front-footed, because Arsenal do have that defensive solidity. They're capable of leaning on that and then exposing the spaces that the opposition leaves. So in a tactical sense, I prefer the fact that Arsenal are playing someone that's going to come at them rather than someone that's going to sit with a low block and try and frustrate.
Shows the power of the team, doesn't it? And I suppose that's why you can be so nervous playing them. Is that to lose Mbappe and to become a better team is quite amazing, really. But it shows the power of if everybody plays together, Harry.
Yeah, there's so much cohesion in this PSG team. I remember commentating on the game where they played Arsenal in the league phase of the Champions League. It was right at the beginning. It was either the second or third fixture. And Arsenal were just streets ahead of them. And I remember coming away from that game and thinking, my God, this PSG team have really regressed. And then you look at how they've developed over the course of the season. And, they've been fantastic. And it feels like they just needed a bit of time to click. They needed those partnerships to develop. Obviously, they went and added Kvaratskhelia in the winter, which for me really boosted things for them in an attacking sense and filled some of the void that was left by some of those departures that we've mentioned. But I think they're a fantastic team now. I think Luis Enrique is among the best coaches in Europe. And I think, he will have learned a lot from that first game about Arsenal and Arteta. And so Arsenal are going to have to keep adapting, keep changing, and do what they're brilliant at the minute, which is finding different solutions to win football matches.
The winner of the Champions League gets 22 million quid, I think, which is about enough to buy Isak's left leg. Would you think he's the answer, Harry, or have you got any eyes on anyone else?
I'd love us to sign him, but I think it's unrealistic at the minute. I think Newcastle, particularly if they make the Champions League, which I think they will be in a great position to keep hold of him, and that makes it difficult for Arsenal. Look, if Arsenal continue the way they're going in Europe, then they're going to have their pick of strikers, and I think that there's been a few names mentioned: Gyökeres, Sesko, just to name a couple. Hugo Ekitike, who we saw play against Spurs. There's a few names that have been floating around. They've got a new sporting director though, so it could be someone completely left field that ends up coming in. But I just think, for me, Arsenal, it's a position of need. It's a position they need to strengthen in for sure. But for now, it's all focus on the Champions League, the here and now, consolidating second place, and we'll see what happens in the summer.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.